I really enjoy your stories, and this isn't exactly a horrible horror story, but it was a whole ordeal. Okay, so this was a number of years ago. I wanted to do a New Year's one-shot, first time DMing for my family. Most of my family hadn't played 5th edition, some 1st edition with my aunt and mom. Figured it'd go well. It did not. Character creation went fine. The party consisted of a Fire Genasi rogue, baby bro, gunslinger, middle bro, Goliath barbarian, dad, elven druid, auntie, and elven rogue, mom. I couldn't think of a good starting hook for my one-shot, so I had a pre-made module from a one-shot site, but I gave them a cliche, I know, tavern intro. Dude, okay, it's not hard to make a tavern intro cool, and everyone who gives up on it at first glance are the same people who are completely incapable of making an interesting human character. Y'all are lacking in creativity. D-. Big mistake. The party wasn't connecting, so I tried to intro the premise. I can't remember the exact details, but it was a war where the party was sent to help stop this bad guy who had weapons they could use to stop the war. It never went anywhere. So I introed a soldier who was sent back from the front lines, which, to the druid's credit, she tried talking to the soldier to learn the story beat. However, that's when things eventually fell apart. Gunslinger killed the barkeep after a failed insight check, and then the barbarian tried to kill our elven rogue for no reason? The elven rogue pickpocketed every NPC she got her hands on and truly didn't care about the world. I vetoed a Molotov cocktail from the Fire Genasi, which caused a lot of table arguing. Bro, the cocktail was the straw? Alright, boys, stand back. This Molotov is really gonna... Okay, it's time to stop. Can you put that down? DM, what are you doing here? I'm trying to stop you from burning down the building, okay? Like, this has gone way too far. Dude, I just saw a guy murder the bartender without any reason. $20 for one shot is ridiculous! Then I saw another guy kill their own party member without any other reason. And 2, barbarian. And then I saw a woman commit the worst crime of all, petty theft. But the Molotov is too far. Look, it's more like a straw that broke the camel's back kind of situation. You understand. Just put it down, please. Dang it. Long story short, the entire party just fell apart and didn't really care about the story. It finally ended up with the party escaping to the woods and the druid trying to avoid the others since druids don't like people in cities. It sucked. I worked so hard in character creation, made sure the characters had connection to at least one other character. I haven't really done much DMing since then, just some kids on bikes with some friends, but yeah. Don't play D&D with family unless you actually know they care about the game. Look, you know the stupid Matt Mercer effect I've always thought was dumb? We need to coin the Ginny D effect. The unrealistic expectation of playing a loving, awesome D&D game with your family without it turning into a complete frickin' mess. Hey Crispy, I've been a viewer of your channel for a bit, and I often listen to it while I'm at work. This is a story of the second ever D&D game I ever played in, and of one of the worst problem players I've ever encountered. I want to apologize in advance if this sounds scatterbrained, as a vast majority of it is based off memories of the event and not concrete information. Welcome to ADHD. Is that going to be the new asexual confusion sound bit? Back in 2019, I joined a college 5th edition group as a new player. I was a little crap at the time, at least I saw myself as that way, and somehow D&D managed to help me rein in my bad opinions. The story takes place during the fall semester, and we were a party of about 5 players. The only 3 aside from myself that you'll need to keep in mind are Vaughn, B, and J. Not real names, obviously. The other 2 are a fighter and a tiefling who only served, like, minor roles. Vaughn was the DM and who was AFAB, non-binary, and this will become important later. Oh, great. B was playing a paladin. She was either a gnome or a dwarf. Her being a woman also comes out later. Oh, great. Jay, our problem player of the story, played a half-orc druid that we'll call Chief. If you viewers are playing bad D&D player bingo, get ready to black out your board. The game we were playing was some kind of homebrew world that Vaughn had put together, themed around some evil power called Chaos Magic. Based on the rules of the club, we had to begin a new campaign at the start of the fall semester instead of continuing one from the prior semester. Luckily, the Crispy clones live another day as we did have a session 0. For my second time playing in this world, I rolled up a Dragonborn monk, named Klaus. For a bit of context, Klaus was the neutral good best friend to the heir of his clan, and he was sent to find said heir after they had been kidnapped. He developed an interesting dynamic with the party, specifically with B. Klaus was a good fighter and was well-meaning, but he was an absolute social alien, whereas B sometimes had to spell things out for him, such as the importance of money. Jay, on the other hand, played a much more aggressive role. He liked to play chief, loud and gruff, detailing how his character wasn't afraid to kill and came from a background of savage fighters that Chief had never left behind or become outcast from. Chief wasn't necessarily a murder hobo, more like he didn't hesitate to attack or kill if he was allowed. Okay, my character is a nice person, not a murder hobo, no way! They just murder at every opportunity they reasonably get! What made it all the stranger was Jay's insistence that Chief, his character, was chaotic good due to his differences with his faction, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The unfortunate details about Jay began almost immediately as he entered the story. The player was very iffy when it came to handling bad rolls, whether it was him not passing on a check or when an enemy successfully attacked him. I can understand disliking when you miss an attack, for example, but this was for everything. I mean everything. Like he got hit, announced his frustration. Failed to hit, sign annoyance. Managed to not succeed on one of his many intimidation checks against NPCs? You can guess the rest. Your broadsword is no match for my katana. We'll see about that. Yes, we shall indeed see. That's not fair! How did you deflect my blow? DM, I'm telling my mom, I don't think this is... Dumbass? Now, it wasn't as if the dice gods hated him. He had the same luck as everyone else, save for our unfortunate fighter, bless his heart. Jay could just not handle being unsuccessful in any way. Couple that with him not taking criticism of his playstyle well, and you can gather he was not the most pleasant individual. Another weird flaw about Jay was how one-dimensional his role-playing tended to be. When I said this character's main thing was about liking combat culture, I meant that exclusively. Chief tried bonding with Klaus and the fighter quite often, and it was for two main reasons. The first was that he viewed our characters as tough men who knew how to fight. And those kind of guys always get along, right? They never fight ever, yeah! Klaus would agree with his view about strength quite often, but I would always try to wrap it back into, like, discipline, which was something Chief lacked. Klaus fought when it was required. Chief just fought if he had the chance. The second reason he roleplayed with just us was because our characters were, well, tough men. As in, Jay liked interacting with the male characters more than any female ones. Chief oftentimes would try to talk with us about the power options we had and would downplay any women in the party as just weaker. There was an exception to this rule in his interactions with B, but we'll get to that later, as it has everything to do with Jay and nothing to do with his character. I can already see the future. I know where this is going. Now, all of this could, in theory, be excusable as a first-time player. My first character before Klaus was a corgi ranger who was angsty and frustrated with everyone. So I get having to learn about creating a character that mixes well with the party. What wasn't excusable was his blatant bigotry. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like I was some kind of saint myself. I come from a super conservative household and used to hold specific political beliefs that I had to grow out of. Luckily, being in college helped to teach me socially important information like don't do a racism and trans people are just people. Jay, however, did not seem to get the memo. For example, anytime me or him would accidentally misgender Vaughn, while I would apologize and try to use they, them, Jay would just seemingly refuse to learn and eventually resort to just calling Vaughn by their name exclusively. That would have gotten annoying. Yeah, I really enjoy Crispy's DMing, but I feel like Crispy doesn't... Like, I feel like Crispy could improve if Crispy put more effort into... Okay, dude, alright, look, all this criticism is fine, but, can you just, like, use they? Saying their name over and over again is getting a little bit... I would rather die than say they! Well, you just said they, and you seem... fine, so... The biggest example of his bigotry, however, was his own character. You want to know why I named his character Chief? Well, remember how I mentioned his character was a half-orc who came from a savage, combat-heavy faction? What I didn't tell you is how this dude described this faction, or rather tribe. How said tribe wore only animal pelt clothing, talked with broken accents, and used torture methods like scalping. I'm not gonna say it, but we're all thinking it. What made it infinitely worse was the fact that this dude fought tooth and nail to defend his assessment that his character was chaotic good, and that he only used torture on evil people, as if torture was somehow like morally gray for him. So how did we ultimately lose Jay? Well, it comes down to him and B. You see, we had a group chat at the time, and we would talk between sessions and kind of express our ideas about, like, what's going on. One day, while I was walking with B to her car, this was a usual post-session thing we did since we both didn't live on campus and head home in the same direction, we got on the topic of Jay. All I remember was I had some issues with something he did in game. Apparently, the dude had also been making B uncomfortable, and while I was clueless to this, she decided to open up more than just the DM and Tiefling player and decided to trust me too. In a chat without Jay, B expressed to me, Vaughn the Tiefling player, how Jay had been trying to romance her. I'll take my grand prize, please. Thank you very much. I always knew. Also, yeah, that's creepy. That sucks. Sorry that happened. Yeah, the dude was seemingly refusing to take no for an answer. From what I remember, the dude wasn't acting on anything, but he was being just petty and creepy. We, minus Vaughn at the time, assured B that she wasn't being unreasonable for having boundaries and expressed equal, although unrelated frustrations at Jay. At one point, I even offered to fake being B's boyfriend just so that way Jay would leave her alone. For context, I was already in a relationship, but yeah, it was just to screw with him. But B turned that offer down. Ultimately, our plans never went anywhere, and eventually he just disappeared, never to be seen again. My theory was that Vaughn managed to get with the club and just booted him. I'm really not sure what became of Jay, but what I can say is that I do not regret our loss. My eventual departure from the party was in a glorious battle at dinner hosted by the Big Bad, where Klaus rescued his best friend. I was leaving due to switching colleges, and sadly in turn lost contact with the rest of the party. But ever since, I've ran and played in a bunch of different games, and I'm happy that my college club taught me all the basics of the game, whether that was good, the bad, or the half-orc. Look, I've said this before, but exploring new cultures and ideas through your D&D game can be a lot of fun. Personally, I've reconnected a lot with my heritage and my roots through Dungeons & Dragons and the writing of Karakonos, an urban setting with a lot of Chinese and Filipino mythology. It's been fun. However, the thing that you need to keep in mind is not to make it weird for the people around you. Playing into racist stereotypes isn't just going to make the people that you are blatantly mocking uncomfortable. It's also just going to make people in general uncomfortable. Racism is weird, man. As for the other big in-game problem of not being able to handle losing, if you guys have watched my personal RPG horror story, you know I've dealt with that before. It's a pain in the butt, it blatantly sucks, and it's the antithesis of what a TTRPG is. Look, you're going to lose sometimes. That's why you're rolling the dice. Losing makes victory taste all the sweeter, which is why it's so stupid when people hate it so much. This will be my first entry if you see this. This happened about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and it's still pretty fresh in my mind, but something's still fuzzy. It'll be a little long, but I'll try to keep it brief. The characters, myself is the DM, also with like a DMPC High Elf Warlock, which will be relevant later. Anon is the problem player, a Tiefling Wild Magic Sorcerer. My girlfriend, now fiance, playing the Orc Barbarian. My girlfriend's brother, Snow Elf Vampire Bloodhunter, and Tree, a Warforged Rogue. Sorry, wait, he's a metal dude named Tree?
Oh, by the way, this is a friend of mine, Tree.
I am Optimus Prime.
I was the DM for a Skyrim campaign, first ever campaign, mind you. At first, it started out with my girlfriend, her brother, and our friend Tree, with 2 other people listening in. Then, Anon came along. He had never played Dungeons & Dragons before, and he wanted to give it a shot. For some context, Anon and my girlfriend were best friends. He even lived with her at a point since he got kicked out of his previous home. Look, at this point, I had no issue in allowing him to join. It wasn't long before the problem started blossoming, though. First of all, he was already sort of a problem outside the game. He and myself butt heads a lot, and he came off as incredibly passive-aggressive. He and Tree started to not get along, and he seemed to be allergic to taking any sort of accountability when someone called him out. But anyway, the outgame stuff is besides the point. He gave me absolutely nothing to go off of for his character. He only really had this idea of his dad being a demon overlord, and like, that's about it. And I appreciate giving a DM a creative liberty, but this was my first time DMing, so I didn't really know what to do with that. Just to give some context to that, Charlie from Hazbin Hotel and Crota the Light Eater are both the children of demon overlords, so, yeah, it's a wide range. He turned literally everything into an argument. He always had to be right. Always had to be the devil's advocate. Pun totally intended. Oh, and it also didn't take long to understand he was a murder hobo. The first time this came up was when the group had come across a cave, and it was a grisly sight. Bodies strewn about the floor, blood-splattered walls, and it turns out this was the work of a werewolf who had attacked them shortly after this realization. Though halfway through, the werewolf reverts form, and it's a little boy. The barbarian and the others immediately stop attacking, seeing it's a kid, and it was clear this kid had no control over his transformations. But Anon, he was basically flippant. So what if he's a kid? He needs to die and kill the spirits! Nah, I'm with him. I hate kids. I'm joking. I'm not here to criticize evil characters. Having evil characters can make a campaign interesting, but this was a 10-year-old kid who had no control over himself, and it doesn't end there. Another time, when my DMPC realizes that she may or may not have a half-brother, and said half-brother had an amulet on him that was connected to the cult my DMPC escaped from years ago, this triggered a major PTSD episode for her. So the group took him prisoner and dragged him across Nirn to fix his wrongs. I don't remember what happened for Anon to do this, but he cut the dude's leg off while he was tied up and defenseless. I remember this caused the barbarian of all people to say, okay, that was too far. I'm all for maiming, but he's not doing anything. It doesn't even end there. There was a session where all the characters were sparring. My DMPC, Tree, and GF were all fighting since the barbarian could easily take on 2 people. So that left our Snow Elf and Anon. Now, there was a bit of a theme for Anon. Up until this fight, apparently, he thought that Snow Elf and Tree's snippy banter was, like, directed at him personally. Not his character, but, like, him, the player, which, honestly, his character wasn't too far from just him as a person. He blows up kids, too. He had this brilliant idea that they were trying to take out their aggression via their characters, when that simply wasn't the case. They were just playing the game. It created a lot of unnecessary tension and animosity among the players. Oh, and he got really mad when a wild magic surge happened and a fireball was cast on him, as if that's what being a wild magic sorcerer is all about. He thought it was me, the DM, attacking him personally. I'm just doing what the dice tell me to. I don't know, it was weird, and he left because he wasn't having fun. I retconned it as an illusion spell that had gone wrong. His character disintegrated, which he was mad about. I don't know. Quick cue. How does an illusion spell freaking disintegrate a man? I thought this cast illusions.
What? No, that's that one.
He was annoying. I mean, I'm not complaining, but I'm curious. I got some other stuff happening, but it's irrelevant. I hope this was entertaining to read. Keep up the good work, and happy holidays. I want to start off by saying, if this guy's annoying out of the game, in-game, he's not going to work out for you. Just trust me on that much. You do not want to be playing any tabletop game with people that you don't like, because that crap will absolutely bleed into the table, and we already see that happening. It's clear that Anon probably also doesn't have very charitable thoughts towards the party either, and because of that, quips and jokes in the game are starting to bleed out of the game. That is why this guy should have been removed from the table just at baseline, because he was butting heads with the party. That is really all that matters. But on top of that, he just doesn't sound like a really pleasant player. If he's a bad player and a bad friend, you really gotta ask yourself, what the hell is he doing here anyway? I was in a D&D club in high school, and since my only time playing it before then was one session as a kid, I was trying to get myself familiar with the system again. I was having a lot of fun as a player, coming up with silly characters for a lot of one-shots hosted then, especially since most people in the group were already friends. I built up the confidence to try DMing, and of course, like most beginners, I came up with a huge, sweeping campaign idea to run. I would lecture that, hey, you should start small and not go for like the big, epic, story-driven campaign. But I did that too, so I'd be a hypocrite. Yeah. The idea was the party would get cursed and transformed into undead ghosts in the first adventure, and join a ghost guild for a way to break the curse. They would go on fun, self-contained, ghost-themed missions, while also allowing them to get to know about various leaders of the ghost guild, and the dark secrets they may have. I even drew art for a lot of them. Oh, you're an angel. With this being my first ever time DMing, I made a bunch of mistakes. There were a lot of contrivances in the scenario with few alternative plans. I didn't give much information to the players of what the campaign would be. I guess I wanted it to be a fun surprise, and I didn't know what session zeros were at the time. I'll let it slide. But at first, things were going okay. The party had their initial red herring adventure that got derailed with the curse turning them all into ghosts. The real hiccup happened when they met the Ghost Guild, and the leader offered for all of them to join. All of them agreed, except for one player who flat out just said, like, no. I was caught completely off guard by this, and when asked, the player simply said she didn't want to. The guild leader got into a lengthy discussion trying to come up with various reasons for the player to join the guild, only to get shot down each time with the same categorical refusal. The conversation went on for so long that by the time I finally managed to convince the player to join the guild, the session was almost over. It was a high school club, so the sessions were only like 2 hours. It was a very drawn out and humiliating experience. I gave up on the campaign after that. It was tough, but it was certainly an important learning experience. It taught me to never assume a player's actions, and I got way better at planning branching paths in my adventures, along with getting better at improv. It also taught me to be more upfront with my players about the plot hook of my adventure and campaign, and to always have at least one requirement character creation. Make a character that would actually want to be in that adventure. Dude, everyone messes that one up sometimes. Matt Mercer did it in Critical Role Campaign 3. That joke's gonna go over well. Fortunately, this wasn't the end of my DM career, even in the club. Some months later, I come back with a fun New Year's one-shot, one involving a genie finding a list of New Year's resolutions and granting them to disastrous results, and it was a blast. I haven't even necessarily given up on my old Ghost Guild idea. One friend told me that sounded like a really fun idea for a visual novel, so I've been looking into programs to make it a thing one day. And I hope you do. It sounds like a lot of fun. It sounds like you've already learned the major lesson. You need to have characters that fit into your adventure, but that means you have to tell the players about the adventure. And yes, this does ruin the surprise. But what's more important to you? The surprise or having fun at the game? Frankly, if you think your entire game is gonna fall apart because a basic premise is spoiled, then I don't know what to tell you, man, your game might suck. This adventure would be a lot of fun even if you knew in advance that you were gonna get cursed and turned into ghosts. I honestly don't think you needed to give up on the entire campaign, but I do understand why. Having one bad first time experience can be really scary. But hey, I'm glad you decided to pick it back up. I've been new to DMing for over a year at this point, and I think I've gotten the hang of it. A messy, rough start, but it was a learning process. The players I play with over Discord are mostly into the role-playing storytelling aspects, well, most of them at least. One person who's been somewhat helping me as an assistant DM is way more into the battle aspect of the game, and is the focus of the story. I basically go into this person... Yo, you go into this person? Holy crap! I basically go to this person for help whenever I need it and ask for it, and they always deliver. However, I think it's common for some forever DMs to eventually want to be a player and take that well-needed DM vacation, and that was what I wanted. So I asked, let's call them B. I asked B if they were willing to do a one-shot just so I could get a taste of how B's style of DMing was. So the ideas that B came up with started popping off with some of the players, and they genuinely seemed interested in this LA, noir, steampunk, heist idea. That is until weeks passed by, and I would check in with them from time to time, as now I was the assistant DM. B would tell me they were working on it every time and they got the handle on things, even when I asked if there was anything they needed help with, maps or homebrewed items, and B reassured me they had it all figured out. Boy, was that a lie upon a lie. I eventually stopped asking because things in my personal life would come up that required more attention, mainly my health, and I was too focused on my semi-weekly sessions with my campaign that I DM'd. The weeks became months, and then it became 9 months to almost a year for a one-shot. It wasn't until recently that the other players asked about it and voiced that they were thinking about dipping out because it had been so long. Bro, I'm out months ago. I got other shit going on. I asked them if B had talked to any of them at any point earlier, and they all confirmed that B had not contacted them at all, with no updates, not a single beep. I brought these concerns up with B and how people were considering leaving, and how they had more of a preference towards me when it came to DMing because of the way they've heard me DM and felt more comfortable. We had set up a mock campaign one time for the two new players to have them get a feeling for what D&D is like casually, and let B demonstrate their DMing skills, and let's just say B had people have sex with random strangers, despite the fact the players were having their characters act very uncomfortable, but still giving in and letting it happen because they were unsure of how to raise their voice about a situation like this to the DM, but mostly because we didn't want to cause trouble. B's reason for this was because we tend to be degenerates when talking about fictional characters. B assumed that was what we wanted. Man, I read AO3 every now and then. That doesn't mean I want to be in a porno. What the fuck? Now, I'm really starting to question, has B really ever DM'd before? What happened to, what do you want to do next? Or maybe just not, insert explicit adult content against your will. It was only after finally asking one last time if the one-shot was going to be a thing anymore was when B finally spoke up about being burnt out from the idea. Now, their work was picking up and their focus was on other things. What B really meant was a piss-poor sleep schedule and playing Minecraft until 5 a.m. after getting home from work at 8 p.m. every day. I don't blame them, and neither do I. I play a lot of Minecraft. Don't blame me, okay? But yeah, they never communicated with anyone unless asked. And they kept putting back the one-shot on the back burner, as they often said and reiterated. Never mind the fact they have almost every 5th edition book, tool, and even the Game Master's book of traps, puzzles, and dungeons that is filled with several ideas and dungeons to choose from. They had the tools. I'm sorry, this is just so frustrating. It wasn't until I told B that people wanted to leave that B actually got off their butt, got in gear about coming up with ideas because B wanted to scrap the heist, maps, NPCs, and so on. No, they did not tell anyone about the change of plans because B still wasn't sure what the plans would change to. I honestly believe my own opinion that B didn't like when I mentioned that the players felt more comfortable with me as the DM, that it might have caused something to trigger in them, like I'll show her I'm better, or this is how you do it. When B kept constantly mentioning Session 0, especially when I first started my campaign because I didn't do enough research prior on how to do a Session 0 properly and felt like it was being rubbed in my face, but either way, it wasn't a good feeling, and felt a mixture of embarrassment and shame for forgetting something as basic as a Session 0. I would say I don't want to make you feel more shame by killing someone because of your lack of a Session 0, but I already let it go once. Can't start getting lax now. Lack of Session 0 detected. Warning. I gotta get out of here. We gotta... Hey man, come on. I was just leaving. We don't gotta do all this, okay? They didn't have a Session 0, Crispy number 4. It's just the rules. You know the rules, and so do I. Come on, man, just give that up! I'm never gonna give it up. Let the grenade down. I'm never gonna let it down. You could just let me get away, okay? I could grab my bag. I'm already packed. I'll never let you run around or desert. Wait, hey!
Worth it.
B's communication is absolutely poor since I was the one having to wrangle people together for a Session 0 just so this can finally happen, when it felt like I shouldn't be doing B's job of communicating with B's players. But in B's words, I knew these people more. Some of the players were giving B the benefit of the doubt, but 2 people, including myself, just dipped out because of the constant changes B was making compared to the original idea that hooked our interest. I struggle with mental health and have several health conditions that caused me to be really harsh when my patience wears thin. I honestly blew up at B when they were telling the news to the other players about how I wasn't going to be there before I could tell everyone else. But then again, what do I expect from a person who doesn't give their players agency, a heads up, or even basic communication? But I also told B that if this was the way they organized games, then I wasn't going to be a part of either helping or playing. Was I frustrated? Yeah, Absolutely. Could I have done this in a better way? Yes, but as the saying goes, hindsight is 20/20. I did tell my players who did not like BHDMing that they were more than welcome to talk to me about a one-shot idea, and I would quickly come up with something that could be fun for everyone. Oh, by the way, update. It took me another month and a half, but they finally announced how not only the one-shot, but another campaign they had previously planned is on indefinite hiatus, aka that crap's not going to happen anytime soon. I never had faith in this person to deliver on their promises, and I never will. I'm gonna be real, man. There are plenty of people who talk about D&D campaigns all the time, and you know what? That's awesome. However, I do think talking about campaigns is not quite as great as actually running campaigns. You can talk about it all you want, but until you actually host a session 0 and you actually gather your players, I'm assuming it's not going to happen. Look, scheduling issues are really annoying, but the DM is the person who needs to be there in order to make the session happen. If the DM can't communicate scheduling things, this campaign will not work out, period. The fact that you guys were borderline coping on this campaign for a year is, I mean, frankly, a feat in itself. I would have given up a long time ago. Hey, that's a wrap. Stayed up pretty late recording this one, so apologies if I sound a little tired. If you guys enjoyed, then you might enjoy our side quest on Asexuality. It's a bit different from our normal content, but we had fun with it. Linked in the cards. But before you go, please do leave a like on this one and subscribe to Crispy's Tavern so you don't miss any of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go in the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment. Stop it with the orcade to let me know you made it to the end of the video. Hey, by the way, if you have your own horror stories, you can send them directly to us. There's an email down in the description down below. Sending stories our way for a chance to be featured in one of these videos. But hey, even if you don't have any stories, in essence, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Farewell.